Welcome to the Real Man Podcast. This is your host, Coach Bricks. And I am very fortunate to get this man, very busy man. All right. And I call him Pastor Dave, as many around here do. He's a pastor, does great work. Great work. He's actually mentored me many times. Has helped me through many difficult situations. If it wasn't for this man here of God and a man in general, I don't know where I'd be right now. And I truly mean that. I talk about it in this whole, and you guys have heard me on other podcasts and have heard me speak many times about falling down in life, failing and stuff like that. And this gentleman, this gentleman helped me through everything to get through what I needed to do, to get through, being a man, being the person, that you're supposed to be, owning up to your mistakes, owning up to what's going on in life. And, if it wasn't for him, like I said, I don't know where I'd really be. And I owe him a lot. I know, we always talk about it. God puts you in certain situations, certain places, at certain times. And I truly believe that. And he was put in my life for a reason, and he has helped me through many difficult situations. So I wanted to have him on because I think he's a great resource for anybody out there, not just me, but for anybody to hear a different perspective as well, coming from the godly aspect. And you guys have heard a lot of my, guys who have spoken on the podcast talk about God and how they have influenced his life. This guy, has definitely done that. So without me going into any more detail, I could go on for a couple hours actually talking about this gentleman here. Pastor Dave, how are you today?
I'm doing strong. I'm staying fit with the Lord, and I'm trying to stay fit with my body. And it's the first of the year, so everybody kind of gets on that, eating right and staying in shape and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm good. It's it's a drag. The fact that church life has just been weird for the last year, and we're hoping for great things in 2021, but we're realistic as well. We know it's going to take a while. It's going to be slow. People are going to be hesitant to come back to church. I just long to see people again. I just long to that, because that's just what makes me tick. And I became a pastor because I just loved being in and with people. And so this hurts, it just takes a toll after a while. And so you have to just keep reminding yourself, looking in the mirror and saying, it's not about that. It's about staying true, staying faithful, being the person God called you to be in light of all the other stuff going on. Right. Yeah. So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. If I'm being honest, I'm going to tell you, once in a while, I get home and I feel beat.
Yeah.
I'm a little tired at the end of the day some days, just trying to do things differently and being creative and doing things virtually and everything, it's just, yeah, our congregation hasn't lost too many people through COVID. We have lost a few. And that's been rough as well. You just feel for their families because they can't really grieve the way we would normally. And so there's just all that stuff that people are dealing with. And I think we're going to be wrestling this, Dave, honestly, I think we're all going to be, as a society, wrestling with this for a couple of years. It's going to leave a mark. It's going to leave a scar for a bit, and we're going to have to walk through it together emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I said that to a couple of my athletes. I said, this isn't over come March, April, whenever, everybody says. I said, this is long lasting. And I think this is what I wanted to get the whole real man thing about, and females too, don't get me wrong. But, we have talked many times about the men, and, I talk about the suicide problem that's going on, and it was rising before this whole thing. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like this is just the 100% cause of it, but it was rising, but this has accelerated it. This has really shown an ugly face that I think a lot of us have not understood and still don't understand, because we're still doing the same dumb things that have caused some of the issues with the isolationism and things like that cause people to go, get the darkness inside of it, if I want to use that terminology, and kill themselves. And when I watch, and I read certain things that people pass on to me, hey, do you see this high school kid from Idaho who's 17 years old, star football player, blah, 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 take his own life? Or the 11-year-old in California who's on a Zoom call for class, couldn't take it anymore and killed himself on Zoom, and you got to feel for what's going on. And I really do. And I think this messages that we're going to talk about today, as well as some of my other podcasts that I have, has to be a message of that. Like, listen, we're all going to go through struggles. And I mentioned at the beginning of this whole podcast how you saved me, you helped me get through a tough time, in my life when the darkness came in, the demons came in and really attacked me. It doesn't matter what you look on the outside, it's how you feel on the inside. And I want to get that across to a lot of males, that you're not alone. We've all gone through this, that we can work through this if we're there for each other and helping each other. And, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you've done a good job of surrounding yourself with some people who have been willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really impressive, because I think men are not told to be vulnerable. I mean, we're told to stay strong, stay true, stay tight, and all that kind of stuff. And that's good. But we also need to be vulnerable and say, okay, I've tapped out. I'm done at this point. I need to go, I need to go away for a bit, or I just need to relax a bit, or I just need to, do me a favor, just give me a hug, just do something. I'm good. I through my, this broken arm thing a couple months ago, and through all that, I just looked at my wife a couple times and I just said, she just looked back at me and she's like, what? And I'm like, I just need a hug. She's like, that's not you. I'm just like always strong, always going 24/7, sleep is highly overrated. I'm one of those kinds of guys. Right. And she's just like, wow. And she like melted, she's hugging me and she's melting and I'm melting. And I just needed that. Every once in a while, we just need to say, okay, I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
And be willing to be that vulnerable. My gosh. Yeah. So surrounding yourself with men who are willing to say, look, I've messed up. I'm going to just be transparent. And I'm going to be vulnerable. And that is a sign of integrity and a sign of, to me, that's something I can honor in another man.
No, and I think you're right. I think that's very, very important, is being honest, because like you said, men are perceived as, and I think it's changed a little bit. I'm going to get into that a little bit later on, but I think it has changed over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But men have always been perceived to be that strong guy. You can't show that side of vulnerability, because if you show that sign of vulnerability, that's the weakness. And, for men for so long, I grew up with, with my father and, looking at different males and stuff like that. They never showed that side,
Right.
You never did. And it just wasn't shown. Now they might've shown it behind closed doors, but they just kept moving. They kept moving. They kept doing the things. And I think that's why that generation worked so much and worked into their 80s and 90s. So pretty much they died. They didn't retire. A lot of people talk about this retirement. They don't know what retirement is. Hell, my dad's 80 years old and still works full time. Still full time. Just because he doesn't know what retirement is. He grew up with nothing with his whole life. He grew up that. And I think that's just how they were brought up. And so when people talk retirement to him, he looks at him like, what are you talking about? Retirement. Don't know what that is. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was just a different time. That's how they got out of, the depression. He grew up learning depression. He grew up during that kind of stuff. So he understood, a lot of those things that are going on. But I agree with that. I think that vulnerability is one of those things that we have to address. We have to address it the right way.
Yeah,
we have to address it, in a manly way that people don't think, well, okay, I'm not a man anymore because of the way they did this. No, I think you just have to address it in a way that everybody can understand.
Well, yeah, because I think the danger is you go, if we address it in the wrong way, because I want to keep a man being a man. Let's be honest. That's what, there are other places that you can go to, and it's like, no, you got to get in touch with your feminine side. Well, I'm not, I probably have a feminine side, but that's not, that's not my thing. I need to get in touch with every side of who I am as a man. And I don't have to have I don't have to identify my feminine side. I have lots of sides as a man, and they're all manly sides of who I am. But the danger is that we've allowed for some things to get weird in our society, and the waters just look a little weird some days, and a little strange some days, and it's a little different some days, and it makes me, I tilt my head a little, like, okay, that's different. That's kind of the pendulum swing away from that World War II generation who came back, and they just didn't talk about it. They just put their nose back to the grindstone. They started back on the American dream. And I have an uncle who was captured in World War II in 1945, captured by the Germans, put in POW camps, beaten, starved. Didn't talk about it until he was in his 80s. And he would talk about it, and he would smile or laugh a little, but he would also cry at the same time, because it was hard. It was hard, but it took him until he was in his late 80s to be willing to even tell his story of what happened. Nobody knew, including his siblings, my mom and my aunts and stuff. It's just, I didn't know the stories. And finally, PBS came to him one day, found him, and said, "We want to interview you." And he said, "Okay, yeah, I'm ready." It was like 86.
Wow.
And he had been through it, man. But he just didn't talk about it. You know, real men just move on, right? You know, but PTS and, you know, stuff like that, we recognize those exist, and we need to leave room for guys to be real guys, to go through stuff, to handle it, walk through it. You know, you talk about suicide, you look at the military suicides.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart having served 4 years in the Marines and and I know guys who got that low and decided they couldn't come back. And so they ended it. And you know, it's just not healthy. It's not good for us. It's not, you know, we've got to figure out ways to address this in manly ways that we can still be men at the end of the day.
I agree. Well, let me ask you this question, all right? And I think it's a topic that has come up a lot, and there's going to be a lot of topics that have come up recently, more and so. But this whole thing about leadership, you know, what's your definition of leadership? And then, you know, what do you think's lacking in leadership today?
Yeah, I think, my definition of leadership is to be able to guide somebody in a place where they've never been before in such a way that they can't wait to get there. You know, the statements have made, if you think you're a leader and you turn around and look behind you and there's nobody there, you're just out for a walk. You're not a leader. You're just out, you're just out for a long walk and nobody's following you. And so you're not really a leader. I want to be that guy who says, you know, let's go over that hill. I've been over that hill before. I came back and I want to walk you over that hill so that then you can walk somebody else over the hill. And you don't know what's on the other side of the hill, but I do, because I've been there before, you know. And so let me help lead you through the things it's going to take for you to get over that hill in your life, for you to get to that place in your life where you're better, you've advanced, you move to the next spot, you took the next rung in the ladder, whatever it might be. And to me, that's leadership. And now, you know, you peel back that and through that journey, and that's what it is. Leadership is really a journey. It's not a one-time, you know, you don't make a singular statement to somebody and think you're a leader, right? It's a journey. There's accountability aspects, there's integrity aspects, there's honor, there's trust and building trust. And there's, you know, leadership has all of those intricate pieces. At any given moment, you're living in and through one of those pieces. Leaders are transparent so that the other person can see your faults, see what you've been through. You know, if you're a real leader, you're not blowing smoke. You know, you're saying, this is where it was. See this spot in the hill? You know, we're climbing this hill. See this spot right here? Here's where I took a fall. Here's why I took the fall right here. And I tumbled back down the hill a little bit. And the hill might be a relationship or, you know, a future in a job or a career or something. But this is the hill we're going after, right? And here's where I took my fall. Don't take the fall here. Let me help you be strong through this. Let me walk you through that. Because if you take a fall here, I'm going to tell you, it hurts. It's going to leave a mark. It's going to scar. And it might hurt the people around you. And so I think as a leader, it's that whole thing of helping somebody get to a place where they've never been before so that they're looking forward to it in such a way that they can't wait to get there. And then they look back and they don't have to, they can turn around and look back and you can be gone because they did it. And they did it on their strength and they don't need you anymore. And they might long for you and want you to be there, but they don't need you anymore. I think, faulty leadership creates the need for the leader to be there. That's faulty leadership. Good leadership creates the lack of need for the leader because you've empowered and skilled the other person, the person you're leading, to lead on their own.
That's awesome. Now, what do you think is lacking though?
Yeah, right.
Because I think there is a lack.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is a lack. I think, when I look at the larger society, the larger culture that we live in, I think, the lack that I see is trust. For me, it really does come down to trustworthiness, because we have managed to put ourselves in a situation where everybody can fake it. Everybody can fake it. You know, I can go in and I can adjust my photo. You know, I can shadow things and I can hide things and I can post on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter only the good stuff that's happening. and I can fake it. I can make myself look really good as a leader. But and so I think in that respect, we create this gap. We've created this gap between the leader and the person you're trying to lead, or the person who's following. And anytime that gap exists, there's a loss. There's a possibility that gap could turn into something massive, some either huge failure or a massive distance where the leader and the follower are completely disconnected from each other. But it's interesting, in the life of Jesus and in the life of rabbis in the time period when Jesus was living, there was a terminology where the rabbi would walk and the follower would follow so closely that it was said that you were walking in the dust of the rabbi. That when they would lift their foot and kick up a little bit of dust, you were so close, you were so tight that you would get that rabbi's dust on you because you were so close in. I think that's what we've lost. We've lost just that desire to cling to a leader because either it looks bad or we just don't trust anymore because leaders can just fake it.
Yeah, I think you're right. When I talk to a lot of these kids and they sort of tell me who they look up to, and I look at them, I'm like, have you done enough background check? Now, listen, we all fail in life. And I tell everybody this. I said, we've all screwed up in life. But it's like you said earlier, do you own up to that? Being that transparent part. And I think that's one of the hardest things is that many people aren't transparent. They try to portray that fakeness that you said and cover it. And nobody wants to admit when they're wrong. Let's be honest. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong. Nobody likes to admit that they mess up in life.
Right.
So it's tough, and it's really tough for males. Let's be honest. You don't like to mess up. You're driving. I don't need a direction. I'm good.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
But I think that's one of the things. I think when I see a leader who can actually own up to it, that's the kind of guy I gravitate to because I'm like, he is human. He is a human being. The only person I know that never messed up is God. And Jesus walked this earth. So I know that person isn't it. So I know they're going to mess up. But if they can admit it and do that, and I think you're right. And I think that's what more people need to see. More people need to see that listen, we're all human. We're going to mess up. But do your research on that person before you just go blindly follow.
Right.
Are they who they say they are? Because it's easy in today's society with social media and all the stuff that you talked about to put on a good show, a very good show.
Right.
Excellent. Hey, Pastor, the next one I wanted to ask about was self-discipline.
Yeah.
What do you think self-discipline is?
Yeah, I think the Bible says take every thought captive. It's that whole thing of and it uses the term captive as in capturing an enemy and taking them captive so that they can no longer be an enemy. That's the same terminology biblically where it says that we are supposed, as believers, as followers, we're supposed to take every thought captive. And I think self-discipline is this idea of taking those thoughts that could be the enemy, those activities, those actions, those things that we do that could be the enemy against us, against our progress, against our success, against our morality, against our ethics, against our families, all those things that could creep in and be the enemy. Take those enemies and just get them captive, put them in a captivity so that they cannot control you. Let's just be honest. If we don't, we're going to end up just doing a bunch of stupid stuff. And I'm probably talking, right now you and I are probably talking to some people who are listening who have done some stupid stuff, right? I mean, if nothing else, you and I have done some stupid stuff. The two of us together might do more stupid stuff, right, than anybody we know. Who knows? But the reality is we all do stupid. But if we capture those things, and that's what self-discipline is. Self-discipline says, you know what? I can handle this. I can't handle that. So it might be I can handle one drink hanging with my friends. I can't handle a six-pack. So you know what? Stupid is a six-pack then. And self-discipline says, okay, I've got to step into this before I ever get there. I got to step in and say, I'm going to draw lines. I'm going to create guardrails. I'm going to put systems in my head and in my heart that are going to stop that process before I go stupid on myself and on the people around me. If I'm at the workplace and some new hired girl just came in, and the last thing I need to do is go over and sit my backside on her desk and say, hey, how are you? And, leave my wedding ring over on my desk or something crazy. That's like, create the guardrails, create the systems, be professional, respect one another, respect the things that you've been entrusted with, like a wife, like kids, like relationships, honor this. That to me is self-discipline, is to say, look, yeah, I could go do that. And if I did, it'll hurt me. It'll hurt the people around me. It'll harm me. It could harm my future. Self-discipline says, stop now. I think a lot of aspects of self-discipline happen before you ever get into the situation, to be honest. One of the things I was taught in the Marine Corps is you go in trained. You create the self-disciplined individual before you ever put them into activity or action. Because the last thing that you want to do is have an undisciplined person getting fired at from the enemy, because they're just going to get up and run, right? But a disciplined person will buckle down, tighten up, and then go into the situation ready to tackle whatever's happening, whatever's getting tossed at them, whatever's getting thrown at them. But without that self-discipline, man, you're just vulnerable. We're vulnerable to the stupid stuff. So I hope that makes sense.
No, makes a lot of sense. I mean, that was powerful. I mean, you came at it at a different angle than most of the other people who talk about it, but it makes complete sense. Absolute complete sense. It's almost like preparing yourself for situations that could arise.
Yeah.
Being disciplined in those, so you know how to then control that situation before it actually happens.
Right.
So that's actually even very, very valuable for anybody. So I love it.
Good.
I personally love it. Today's man, do you think they have a clear vision, or do you think it's been clouded?
I think it is really tough to be a man right now. I think it's tough. Maybe more difficult than any time in history that I've ever had a look at. I mean, I'm a student of history. I love history. I'm looking back. I think it is incredibly challenging to be a man right now, because there's so many different ways that society is pressuring men to exhibit what it means to be a man right now. One piece of society says, no, a man has to look like this. Another, over here it says, no, a man can look like this, or a man can look like that. And I think, I think it's a difficult time to be a man right now. I think it's a challenging time. And I think, resurrecting this sense of manhood. I'm fortunate, like you. I'm married to just a beautiful, wonderful woman. And by beauty, I mean outside, inside, everything, you name it. And one of the things that my wife says, we'll be watching something, or, like a TV show or a movie, and we'll see, like, some guy do something to protect others and just to be manly, just, Vikings, or, something to just like, yeah, and I'm sitting there feeling like, oh man, I'm like, I've got my chest puffed up a bit, and I want to go grab a sword or something, right? And I'm thinking, yeah. And my wife is like, there's something about that I think every woman admires and wants in her life, is that, yeah, I want that guy to have a soft side, but I need, the protector. I need the guy who's going to fight for me. I need the guy who's going to go at it for me. I need the guy who's going to be the strong one for me, and she said, I just think every woman wants that kind of guy. And I think, resurrecting those kinds of men in our society. But, unfortunately, I think right now, we've said to men that's, and culturally, I think we've said, that's barbaric. That's foreign. That's not who real men are supposed to be, and that's not what women want anymore. And I look at SEAL Team 6, and I'm like, that's my boys right there. That's man. That's manning up. That's being a man. That's saying, we're going to protect and serve. I look at those kinds of guys, and I honor that. I mean, I was just like, I got those are some real men friends that are serving in those kinds of positions, cops and firemen, and, Secret Service and guys like that I just think, that's real men kind of stuff. And I think a lot of guys, they go out and play real men over the weekend, and don't get me wrong. And I've done this, paintball and, all that kind of stuff. And we go out and we play real man. But then we come back and, we go back to jobs where we're sitting at a desk, and we're not challenged physically. We're not challenged to use what we've been created to be as men.
Yeah.
And so, and by that, I mean our physicality and our, our emotionalities, our emotional natures, and, our heart and our strength. And I don't think we get a chance to use all of that like we're supposed to, like we were created to. And so culture has kind of crafted this different look for a man anymore. It's about, are you making enough money? Is your house big enough? Are you driving the right car? Do you have the right job? Do you have the right, name on the lapel of your suit? That kind of stuff. And while there's some value in some of that, we've made it the thing.
Yeah.
Instead of, is there integrity? Is there honor? Are you chivalrous? Would you give everything you got for the man beside you? Would you take a bullet for your wife? That's to me, I think we're sitting in this society right now that's just so messy and so muddy when it comes to that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of the things I talk about, and it says, I ask them, my kids, and you hit all of them, what drives most men today? And you kind of said it. It's that, materialistic, the ego, the look, it has to be this way, like you said. And why certain things like that, there's nothing wrong with it. It's still having that ability to do what you said, having that toughness, that ability to, I always call it the hunter and gatherers. Men God created us for a reason. God, everybody I think tries to downplay God, but he's smart as hell. When it comes down to it, what he comes up with, he said, all right, I'm going to make men like this. I'm going to make females like this. And I talked about it and I said, it's the complement. It's not to override the other one or you do the part of the other one. It's work together and do it. And I tell everybody, I said, my dad was a phenomenal cook. Absolutely awesome. My wife's the only person I think is better right now is my wife. I love her cooking. But my father growing up was the best cook I ever had. My mom was good, but nothing on my father's level. And, everybody else growing up, most of the times the wife or the mom, cooked. But my dad, exactly. Now he worked, he did all this stuff. He did the outside work. He did all, no problem. But they knew the role and they worked it together and it worked well. But it seems like nowadays, well, I can do that just as good as a man. So I don't need a man, and men aren't important. And it's almost getting to that point where it's coming like that. And then the men takes the back seat. And like I said, it's like the ego status and all that kind of stuff. And I agree with you. I think it's definitely the waters have been very muddied. And I think for people to understand, hey, you just need to get back to it. There's nothing wrong with being strong. There's nothing wrong with physical strength, as long as you use it in the correct way, And I agree.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm proud that I have calluses on my hands. Right. I don't ever want to get into that point where I lose my calluses. I lose my physicality. You and I talked before we started this, that I want to get back in the gym once my arm heals and I can, I want to get back to, I want to lift more than I've ever lifted. I got goals, man. I got some goals. I want to continue to be something strong.
Yeah. And I think
that's as men, that's what we're called to do.
Yeah, I agree. Now I want to get a little personal with you this one. What do you fear?
Yeah. I think all of us have, what some people have called a shadow side. It's that other side that you kind of keep in the darkness. And there's a part of me that, my fear is that somebody would see my shadow side. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Don't mind that man behind the curtain, right? I don't want you to see all the levers and all the buttons I'm pushing to make it all work, right? So I guess that's part of it for me. That's part of my fear. I fear failure, if I'm honest. If I'm just going to be completely transparent with you, Dave, and I don't, it's not about anybody watching. It's about me and you right now. And I'm just talking to my buddy Dave, and there's failure. I want to see this. I want to see successes. I want to see numbers grow. I want to see my family succeed. I want to see my kids turn out well. All those kinds of things. And I just, if I go into something, I want to do it in such a way that there's something positive coming out of it, not something negative. So I fear failure. There's no doubt about that. I think about that. There's a bunch of stuff I don't fear. I don't fear death, and I don't fear some things like that. But I do fear just that I think the third area that I would hurt somebody unintentionally and not be able to repair that. I think that kind of sits in the back of my mind. I'm a people person. I'm a people pleaser. That's part of my mentality and my makeup. And not everybody is, but that's me. And I think I'm always thinking, did what I just say hurt that person? You know, so I think that's probably my third fear, is that I would hurt somebody in such a way that I couldn't repair the relationship.
Yeah, no, they're excellent. Excellent. I'm with you on a lot of those. Definitely. What does mental toughness mean to you?
Yeah. Mental toughness for me means being able to go at 8 o'clock at night, like you did at 8 o'clock in the morning. Mental toughness means being able to judge the situations that you're in, be able to step back, take a 10,000 foot view, and then come back on the ground real quick, boots on the ground, and being able to stay in the game no matter what. Right now, I'm working my way through a book with two really good friends of mine, two males that I went through seminary with, and the three of us are working through a book called Managing Leadership Anxiety. And it's this whole thing of, staying mentally tough in situations where anxiety is high. The potential for anxiety is high, whether that's, managing a business or managing a church through COVID-19, or, you've got a situation where somebody in your work, let's say, somebody in your workplace, you found out they were stealing. Okay, now you got a high level of anxiety. You got to take a look at finances. You got to take a look at locking the place down. You got to, get into a court system, maybe a legal system with that person, whatever. And that just creates a lot of anxiety. How do you manage that kind of leadership anxiety? And I think it's mental strength that does that. I think it, recognizing, here's the situation I'm in right now. Here's what it really means. Here's its lasting impact. There are a lot of times we make mountains out of molehills. I'm not a big drama person. Things can happen, and I'm just not going to go down that path. I'm just not going to make them out to be something bigger. And I think that's mental toughness. I think it's just saying, okay, it's coming to a place of being a realist. Like, okay, yeah, this could hurt. This could leave a mark. This could have a lasting impression somewhere, or this could do us in, or this could affect us. But, in the scale of, we were talking about this broken arm thing, and, I'm going to spend another month. The reality is I got a lot of life left to live. This is just a really short period in my life. Can I do this? Can I do another month? Absolutely. Why not? What's my alternative? Drop into a funk and crack open a bottle and start drinking and whatever, whatever. That's not the alternative to me. I'm going to stay mentally tough. If a physician says, look, you're going to come back to 100% with this broken arm, but it's going to take another month of you just sitting in, then okay, then I'm going to stay mentally tough through that month. Are there going to be challenges in there? Absolutely. I'm going to wake up at 2 a.m. I'm going to have this brace on my arm. I'm not going to be able to roll over on the side I want to roll over on, and I'm going to be a little disappointed. But I've got to say, okay, Lord, walk me through it, keep me strong, fall back asleep, wake up in the morning and put my feet on the ground and go at it again. It's that whole thing of mental toughness means being willing to go at it every day, knowing full well that some days you're just going to see amazingly huge successes, and other days you're going to take a step backward. But every day I'm going to go at it.
And I think that's key. You said it with, being a man, sometimes we don't like to take those steps back. We think it's always should just be boom, 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 boom.
Right. Yeah.
That would be nice. Let's be honest. It would be phenomenal, but it doesn't happen. I mean, there's many times that I've, throughout my time, and you probably had it as well, that I've taken a step forward and then boom, 5 steps backwards. And you're like, what the heck just happened there? It was like a train hit you. And then it didn't just hit you. It ran you back over because it backed up.
Yeah.
And I think, like you mentioned, getting back up, understanding that, hey, listen, life is short, but some of these problems that we have are really very minor and very short in duration of that life. Yeah. And I think sometimes we blow them up. We make them worse than what they are. And it drives that anxiety. And that's great to hear that, you're getting together with a group of guys and reading this book and, leadership and how to deal with anxiety. Because I think that's key. I mean, I've seen over this last year, more of my athletes, and these are young people, have a lot of life to live, be so anxious, and their anxiety's through the roof, whether it be school because they can't get into college because the colleges aren't having visitations, The schooling right now, I think, is really poor because everybody being online, the kids aren't learning. They're telling me they're not learning. So I think they have a lot of anxiety, what's going on, and trying to deal with that is difficult because you and I aren't in that type of a leadership position to say, hey, go back to school and just do it. But trying to cope with them, help them out through this whole situation. And listen, you're going to get through it. This is what we need to do. And this is how we do it. So I think you're right. I think it's mental toughness and trying to help these kids, hopefully through this whole virus thing, that these kids become more mentally tough, because they're going through a situation which probably my parents went through, towards the tail end of the Depression, through polio, through the war and stuff like that. Those people were tough as all nails. They went through that, so I'm hoping that these kids, that we teach these kids, hey, listen, you went through a tough time. Let's build on that though. Let's learn from that, hey, you guys can be tough for making it through this situation and move them on. So that's what I'm hoping for, that it comes out.
I think, your guys talked about it the other night. Several of the guys talked about having a plan and having a purpose.
Yep. I
think I could stay mentally tough if I know I'm working toward the plan, even if I have a day where it was a negative, it was a setback or, a step back off the plan a little bit. But if I know, look, here's my plan. My plan is I want to retire at this age, or I want to have a child. I want to be married. I want to do this. I want to reach this career goal. I'm always working toward a plan and a purpose. And those are different. My plan and my purposes need to align, but they're different. The plan is how I execute the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
My purpose is to be a man of integrity, a man of honor. My plan is how do I execute that in my work, in my family, in my relationships, in my finances, whatever it might be. And so I think that allows me to be mentally tough. When I put my feet on the floor in the morning, I was like, okay, I'm going after the plan today. I'm going after the purpose. I'm gonna take a step toward it, and I'm not gonna back off until I put my head back on this pillow at the end of the day.
I think that's great advice. I think that's phenomenal advice, actually. Awesome. I want to know one of your greatest times that you actually had the biggest growth in life, where you really had that, I would say that aha moment, but a time where you really saw like huge growth.
Sure. I think, this is going to maybe sound weird. I don't know if there's anything biblical. I can't really point to a biblical passage except for the number 7 pops up in the Bible every once in a while. But I believe there's something about a 7-year cycle in the life of a human being. If you think about it, 7 years old, we're starting school. At 14, we're in puberty. And at 21, we're taking the adventure of life. We're stepping out, we're on our own, we've graduated, we've gone to trade school. We're moving into adulthood at 21. At 28, I think you really start asking the question, okay, why am I really here? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? I need to start buckling down at 28, 35. You're like, okay, I started a family. Maybe you have a child by now, that kind of stuff. And you're like, okay, what am I going to do? You look at these kind of 7-year marks. Well, I've had a couple of those where 28 and 35 were huge jumps for me. They were just massive jumps for me. At 28, I answered the call to ministry, decided to become a pastor and say yes to God. I had been running prior to that away from what I knew was God's call in my life to be a pastor. And it was this internal thing, but it was also an external thing. I know I heard God's voice externally at one point in my life. And I finally just said, okay, God, I'm going to answer that call. And that was one of those pivotal moments when just doors just flew open for me emotionally and mentally. And so between that time of 28 to 35, and that was just explosive for me. I had not done college. I went straight out of high school, straight in the Marine Corps. So I was working restaurant equipment, I was turning a wrench and answered this call to ministry and needed to go to college. So I started at Hack and then went to Messiah College, and from Messiah College went to Eastern Seminary. And in 8 years, I went from 0 to master's degree, and so it was that was a massive learning curve, but it was an incredible growth time for me. So I would say it was that whole thing of saying, just opening my life to what the plan was, what God's plan was for me, getting in touch with that and saying, okay, I'm not going to pursue my plan anymore. I'm going to pursue God's plan. And when I did that, doors just flew open and the learning curve just went off the chart. Right. And I stepped into that every day and just, okay, God, you got me, you got this, you got me, here we go. And it was just an incredible adventure of learning and growth through that time period. I mean, we had 2 children when I answered the call to ministry. We had a 3rd child while in my first church. And, I had 3 kids. My wife was working as a nurse. We were juggling schedules. I was going to school full time, commuting back and forth to Messiah College, and then commuting back and forth to Eastern Seminary down in Philadelphia. It was challenging. That's why we do that kind of stuff when we're young, right? But it was a curve time that was steep. There were lots of times where 1 o'clock at night, after we put the kids to bed and everything, and I started doing my homework, and at 1 o'clock I'd close the books, go to bed, wake back up at 5 or 6, and go back at it again. And there were lots of nights like that. And I think it was that whole thing of the curve was so steep that I couldn't back off of it, or I was going to fall. I was just going to fall back down because the curve was so steep. So yeah, that was a huge learning time, but it took me surrendering me and saying yes to God for me to get into that.
That's a difficult thing. Let's be honest, because your faith in a lot of people, wanes, with the wind a lot of times, and you had to have a lot of faith, because 7 years of your life. When you look at it, that point, I still consider, I always tell people you're still in the prime of your life. And when you have to do that, it's like, oh, okay. And then, like you said, you were full-time dad, going to school full-time, probably even doing some work here and there. And then, raising kids is a full-time job, really. And then, got getting to bed at 1 o'clock. I know those days, and then turning around and doing the whole thing all over. It took a lot of mental toughness. That's where the mental toughness comes in. A lot of strength, but a lot of faith in God to get you through all that points. And I think that's where some people fail, because they don't have that faith of God's going to help me. I know it's a struggle. And I always tell people, I said, Jesus struggled. Don't you think he was out in the desert for 40 days? He didn't struggle. You don't think he wanted to stop that torture, that torment, but he did. And I think sometimes people are always looking for that easy road. It's the easy way. And you didn't do it. And, and I always tell people some of my greatest growth were during those most difficult times that I had in life too.
You and I have learned something that I think we live out of even to this day. Nothing that is worthwhile is easy.
Yeah.
Nothing that's worthwhile is easy. The things that I value the most to this very day in my life are the things I worked hardest for. The things that were the throwaway items were the things I got for free.
Yep.
They were the things that just came easy. They didn't mean as much because it didn't take everything in me to make it happen, right? Somebody handed it to me, or, it was the easy thing. The easy things those aren't the things that stick around. When I think about my life, I think about, man, we gave a lot for that thing, and I'm going to honor that thing, and I'm going to value it because of the effort. Nothing that I have that is worthwhile came easy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Last question for you. I want to know your top 3 characteristics of a real man.
Yeah. Top 3 characteristics of a real man. Gosh, great question. You're throwing that at me. Because I'm juggling them around. In my head, I've got a couple key words that are just juggling around for me. The first one that pops to mind is integrity. Integrity. The guy said it the other night. It's being who you say you are. It's doing what you say you are going to do. It's acting the way you believe you should act when no one's watching. Right? That's integrity for me. That's a real man is the guy who says, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be no matter what. You can throw $1 million in front of me. I'm not gonna crumble. You can say, you can flaunt something in front of me. I'm not going to go after it. There's an integrity. Real man and integrity comes to mind. The second one is, and we've mentioned it a couple times already, I think it's strength. I think it's mental strength. I think it's physical strength. I think it's the sense of endurance. Can I go just a little bit further? Can I go just a little bit further? Can I keep doing this just a little bit more? Sure, I can. Probably for me, that has a lot to do with my military background and just how I was raised, and that kind of stuff. Is you just don't give up. You just don't give up. We used to say, look, as a Marine, if you can walk, then walk. But if you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, slime. But do something. Don't give up. Do not ever give up. And I think a real man says, I'm not going to surrender. I'm not going to give up. This hill is mine, and I'm standing here, and my flag is in this hill, and you can't take it from me. So strength, integrity, strength, and I think honor. I think, chivalry is not dead. I think honor for me is that third one that I think men have lost that thing of that it's okay to look up to another guy and say, I want to be like that. I think we should be able to have male role models that we can honor, and to be able to be a person who carries themselves and acts in ways that creates honor in the atmosphere around them. There's always this sense of integrity. There's always this sense of strength, and there's always this sense of honor that come through, that you can look up to that person and say, I want to be like that when I grow up. I got guys in my life, even to this very day. I've got mentors in my life to this very day that I say to them, I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to be when, maybe it's, when they etch the final words on my tombstone, whatever, he was the guy he said he wanted to be when he grew up. I don't know what they're going to say about me, but to me, that's chivalry, that's honor. And I think we need it back desperately.
No, I agree. I think there are three high characteristics that I also have for being a real man. I think I put them in my top 5, those 3 there, with integrity probably being most likely number 1. I think it's just, you got to be able to do it. And it's not easy. It's not easy. When nobody's looking, it is easy to slack off. It's easy to do the things that, you don't want to do. And even though you tell everybody to do it, it's tough. So it does take a lot to do those things. Pastor, listen, I appreciate you being on. This was awesome. Anytime I get to talk to you is always a blessing, but also a learning session. A learning session, baby. It's like going back to school again. Learning from you. And I always learn something new. And, I think it's very important that people continue to reach out. I think, right now in society, I see it. I think you mentioned it a little bit. You didn't lose too many of your congregation, but I think we need to get back to that in-person congregation. I understand that it's just a building, but It's what's in that building that makes it the congregation, the faith, and all that kind of stuff. And I think we need to get back to that, because I think, society, especially here in America, is, wavering when it comes to that stuff with faith and our ability to trust a fellow man and ability to, look to God for our answers and rely on him, that he'll do it at the time he wants to do it, not when we want to do it, because we always want it right now. Everybody, at least I know, myself included, is impatient. He's like, listen, I'm going to do it on my time. When I'm ready, I'll do it. Could be today, could be tomorrow, could be 100 years from now. It's up to him. But I think we need to get back to that faith, and rebuild and reconnect with ourselves and with other people. Because I really believe that throughout this whole time, the 9th, 10th month, whatever it's been, that lack of human interaction is really hurting us as people. I see more people who are walking down the side of the street as I'm walking on, and they switch over to the other side. Yeah. For no reason. There's nobody there, you know what I mean? And I see that a lot more, and I'm like, for what reason? What? I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to do those things. But I think we need to get back to that. And your message today and all the questions I asked and just the beginning were right on, spot on. And I appreciate you coming on and doing the things that you always do, and the ministry that you do for God and for man and for everybody else out there. So I thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother. Thank you. Anytime.
All right, my man.